For more analysis, let's speak to Kristi Govella, Senior Advisor and Japan Chair at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Kristi, thank you so much for joining us on the show. So Ishiba says, I'm not going anywhere. But I guess the real question is, does he get to decide after the loss of both houses under his watch?
Well, it's been a very challenging term in office for Prime Minister Ishiba, and it's certainly been a whirlwind for the last few days. He's under a lot of pressure after his party's loss on the weekend election. Many people in Japan are unhappy with the way that the ruling coalition has handled domestic economic issues. They've been feeling the effects of inflation and high prices, and they want change. And they clearly messaged that in the election results. It's true that Ishiba has now received a boost potentially from the recently concluded trade deal, but there are still many people who want to see different leadership, both within his party and outside.
Kristi, there's a lot of chat and chatter, if you like, about the trade deal. Some say it's going to save him. Others say it doesn't matter. It now dooms him because the job is so-called done. Your thoughts on that?
The trade deal seems to give more credibility to all of the effort that the Ishiba administration has put into the negotiations over the last several months. But Ishiba's political fortunes have been flagging for quite some time. There are many issues besides the trade deal. And when he initially said that he was going to stay on, his reason was clearly linked to the trade negotiations with the US and the need for political stability. So I think Ishiba's greatest asset may be the fact that there is no clear successor to him within the LDP. And so the fact that he's lasted so long is partly due to his own determination, but also partly due to the fact that it's not clear who would take over and what that would look like at a very challenging time for Japan in both domestic politics and foreign policy.
And so, Kristi, our correspondent earlier said that, it's possible that, those calls for him to step aside may resurface in the coming days. And so, how likely is that to happen in your books? Just following on the point that the deal is done and, he can sort of make an exit achievement.
Beyond the trade deal, there are just general issues that really make it challenging for Ishiba to stay on. Besides the trade deal, which would have made everything much worse, Japan is already grappling with inflation for the first time in several decades, and voters are feeling it in their daily lives. So the fact that they sent a pretty strong message in an election and there has been no change of leadership or no seeming accountability for that, the trade deal makes up for some of it perhaps, but there are likely to be questions about other issues moving forward. And Ishiba may be able to stay for some time, but it doesn't appear to be a very long time window that he has. So I would say that his days are probably numbered, but he may be able to hang on for a while, and he certainly seems determined to do so.
I want to ask you, Kristi, about the mood within the ruling party, the LDP. Voters, quite clearly, as you've mentioned, have spoken because they're not happy with various issues like immigration, taxes, and the cost of living. I'm wondering, apart from the senior, if you like, members, what's it like for the younger party lawmakers? I came across a report about a petition that's been making the rounds as well.
Well, for members of the LDP, it's never useful to have an unpopular prime minister or to have a government that's perceived to not be effectively addressing the voices of the people. So in this last election, we saw newer populist parties, particularly Sanseito and the Democratic Party for the People, really gain traction with arguments about addressing these economic concerns. And immigration was also an issue, but looking at exit polls, it seems that voters were not considering that top of mind. It was really things like commodity prices, pensions, social welfare, et cetera. So it's a very challenging environment for young politicians trying to make a career when they see themselves as saddled with unpopular leadership. So that's why you see rebellion against Ishiba emerging both at the top of the party and also amongst these younger lawmakers who feel that they need someone more charismatic to lift their fortunes.
Just to go back on, the fate of Mr. Ishiba, I mean, we're seeing reports that said he met with Yoshihide Suga, Taro Aso, Fumio Kishida. These are all rather former premiers and ruling party heavyweights. And so really, how are you viewing this meeting? I mean, what kind of message does it send, and how unusual is this?
Well, it's difficult to believe that that meeting took place and that the subject of Ishiba's leadership was not raised, as Ishiba claims. It certainly seems like the LDP has a lot of thinking to do after the election results. So Saturday's loss left them in minority not only in the upper house, but they also lost their majority in the lower house already in October. So the LDP and their partner Komeito are ruling in minority for the first time in both houses since 1955, when the LDP first gained power. So this is something of a crisis for the LDP, as Japanese politics appear to be much more fluid. Voters appear to be willing to switch their allegiances to new parties. And it's clear that if they hope to do better and to retain power, they're going to need to shift strategy and think about the big picture. So I'm sure that this meeting and other discussions within the LDP are related to these election results, and generally a change of leadership or a change of overall strategic vision is necessary to adapt and to recover from such a upset.
All right, Kristi, thanks for your time this morning. Kristi Govella there, Senior Advisor and Japan Chair at the Center for Strategic and International Studies.